Hi, I'm Rachel with Doris for Pat Catan's.
Welcome to Expression's Floral Mesh Basics.
There are several different kinds of mesh. Mesh rolls can be used to create wreaths or fun 3D pieces. They come in metallic, window pane, solid, or patterned. Mesh tubing and ribbon can be used as embellishments to add to your creations. Mesh tubing comes in a variety of colors. Mesh ribbon comes in different widths and different styles, just like the mesh rolls. Bases are essential to working with mesh. The most common is the wire wreath form. It can come with or without ties. 16 inches is standard, and it requires only one roll of mesh, but any size will work. Tomato cages are great for making 3D forms, like trees or snowmen. You can get creative and use other forms like a styrofoam ball to make a pumpkin or a snowman head. The greatest part about working with mesh is that there are endless possibilities. First, I'm going to show you the puff and tuck technique. It's really easy, anybody can do this. To get started, you're going to need a roll of mesh and chenille stems in corresponding colors. I'm using opposite colors so that it's a little bit easier for you to see. You're going to need a wire wreath frame. I'm using a 16-inch frame, a pair of scissors for later use, and a pair of wire cutters to cut your chenille stems. To begin your wreath, you're going to start on the inside rung. You're going to work your way around and to the outside of the wreath form. Pick up a chenille stem, pick any joint in the middle rung, the inside of the wreath. Wrap the pipe cleaner around it so that it doesn't move back and forth. Now this is the fun part. Take your mesh and just drop it to the floor. It's okay, it can roll around as you work, it's much easier that way. Go ahead and bunch up your mesh. Leave maybe like a 4-inch tail. Take your pipe cleaner and then twist it around the mesh using a simple bread twist. Take the ends and fold them down when you're done with your twist. That way you don't poke yourself while you're working. Now don't worry about this tail because later on you're going to tuck it into your wreath. You won't even see it. About 6 to 8 inches down, bunch your mesh up again. Grab another chenille stem and wrap it around the next joint. Take another chenille stem, wrap it around the next joint.
When you've gone all around the inside rung, you'll jump to the next, working outwards. Keep tying your mesh to each joint until you reach the outside rung.
Now when you get to this point, you're going to jump onto the outside of the wreath form. Now when you work around the outside, you're going to bunch at every joint, and then you're going to bunch in between every joint too, so it'll be double puffed on the outside. This helps to create a little bit more body, it makes your wreath look a little bit fuller. Now when you get to your last bunch, go ahead and tie it on, just like normal. You might have some extra mesh, you might not, you might finish a little short. Even if you finish a little short, nobody's going to notice, don't worry about it. But when you're done, you don't have to cut it, just take the tail and bunch it right into the rest of the mesh and nobody's even going to notice it. And so this is what your mesh wreath is going to look like when you're finished. You don't have to be super consistent as you work, no matter what, it's going to turn out awesome. Next I'm going to show you the roll and cut technique. You're going to need a lot of the same supplies that you used to make the puff and tuck wreath. You'll need a wire wreath form, you're going to need a pair of scissors to cut your mesh, and then something to tie your mesh to the wreath form. I'm using tinsel wire, and of course you're going to need your wire cutters to cut that. Something that you're going to do a little bit different this time, you're going to cut your mesh into 12-inch wide strips. You're just going to let the mesh roll in on itself, it's going to make a tube, and this is what you're going to use to create the body of your wreath. To begin, take a piece of tinsel wire, wrap it around one of the middle joints, Grab 3 or 4 mesh rolls in the center, and then twist the tinsel wire around the rolls using a bread twist. Grab another piece of tinsel wire, go around the next joint, and repeat. Now you're going to work your way all around the wreath on the middle rungs, and then move to the outside rung and the inside rung to fill in to give it a little bit more body. Now if you want to do something a little differently, you can use a styrofoam wreath form. Do the same thing. Grab your mesh, but this time you're going to wrap it around the wreath form. Grip it tight. Take a piece of tinsel wire and tie the mesh off just like that, tucking the ends in. You'll continue to do this and work your way all around. The back's going to look just like that, and you'll get that same nice full effect, but this wreath is just going to be a little bit smaller. Now this is what your wreath should look like when it's finished. This was made on an 18-inch wreath form, so it's a little bit larger, but either way, you're still going to get that nice and full effect when you use this technique. There are a variety of objects you can use to enhance your mesh creations, like lights, which you can add in before or after. You can also use mesh tubing or ribbon. I'm going to show you how to work ribbon and tubing into your mesh wreath. Grab your mesh roll, drop it down to the ground like you did in part 2. Grab your mesh tubing and your mesh ribbon, drop them down the same way. Grab all 3 parts and bunch them together, making sure that the ribbon and the tubing are on top. And you're going to work the same way you did for the puff and tuck technique. You're going to start on the inside rung, pick a joint, and then tie all 3 pieces in. Move on to the next joint. Grab your mesh about 8 inches down, take your ribbon and your tubing, and bunch them on. Make sure they're sitting on top. And tie them in. You're going to repeat this all the way around, just like you did for the puff and tuck technique. It's really easy, it's not much harder than just using the mesh by itself. There are many different objects that you can use to embellish your wreath after you're done making it. Use your favorite home decor item, ornaments, a bow, floral picks. The sky is the limit. Be as creative as you'd like. Now some objects, like this home decor object here, require hot glue to be attached. When you apply the glue, put it directly on the back of the object and then stick the object to the mesh itself. Hot glue can melt mesh if it's applied directly. Now, I'm going to show you how to attach this bow onto this wreath that I made in part 2. It's very easy. This bow has a pipe cleaner attached to the back. You're going to take the chenille stem, pick any point where you'd like the bow on the wreath, push the chenille stem through the holes in the mesh. I'm adding it through another part just for some added security. Hold the ends together and twist them. Very simple. Tuck the ends back in, that way you don't poke yourself later. And it's attached, it won't fall off or anything. Same thing with floral picks, just stick the floral pick through the hole in the mesh, bend the wire around that's in the floral pick, and it's already attached. Very easy. Today, I'll show you how to make 2 popular pieces, the mesh tree and snowman. To make both, you'll need 2 tomato cages, 2 to 3 rolls of mesh, chenille stems, zip ties, and then scissors for the very end. Stack 2 tomato cages together so that one sits 3 inches higher than the other. Make sure 6 bars are showing all the way around, zip tie at the top, and at the bottom so that the frame stays together.
Tie your mesh to the bottom ring at one of the rungs. Work your way around the bottom of the cage, adding mesh just like a wreath. Work your way up the cage, alternating where you tie the mesh on each row. When you finish one roll, tuck the tail in and start with a new roll where you left off. When you reach the top, tuck in your ends and add some ornaments or lights, and your piece is finished.
The snowman is very similar to the tree, except for this you'll only need one tomato cage. Bend the wires in at the top and bend them in here at the base so that they don't poke you while you work, and zip tie them together. To begin, tie the mesh down to the bottom of the frame at one of the joints. Grab a generous amount, bunch, and then tie to the second joint.
Repeat this with a little smaller of a bunch.
Do this once more to create a little bit smaller bunch for the head. At this point, you're going to come back down and work your way to the bottom. At this point, it doesn't really matter where you tie your mesh to the frame because this can slide around. So to get the snowman formed, you're going to work your way up and down the frame, and then you're going to work your way around. When you reach a stopping point, or when you run out of mesh, go ahead and just grab another roll and start like you would on a wreath or any other form.
Add a scarf, top hat, and pipe, and now you have a snowman.